In this video, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Tinyhawk RTF kit and a little bit of a teardown of the radio and headset. This kit is about ready to fly as they get. It comes with absolutely everything you need. So first we've got the radio, and let's see what's inside here. It's powered by an 18650 battery, and you don't even need to remove it. It has a USB charger, so you just need to plug it in. We've got about 8 screws holding this thing together, so don't miss any of them if you want to take it apart. The faceplate pulls right off, and be careful not to lose the button. But once we've got inside here, we can see just how simple this thing is. It's really just a basic radio. It has a couple of gimbals and the main board. It has 3 connectors, 1 for the battery and 2 for the 2 3-position switches on top. So let's just unplug these and have a look at the board. The antenna is connected to this top plate here, as well as the switches. And I didn't really want to pull the antenna out. It seems to be snapped in there, so I left that in. Considering how cheap this radio really is, the gimbals are actually not too bad. They center on 1500 in Betaflight, and they don't feel too horrible. They've got a decent spongy feel to them, but I don't think there's any way to adjust the springs. So let's take a look at the headset. It has a 4.3-inch 480 by 272 display, which is pretty average for this size headset. It also has a fan, which is pretty unique. Most of these box headsets don't have a fan, and I guess that's to help keep your face cool on a hot day. It has a sliding magnifier, which helps with the optics. I find that pulling it as close to my face as possible does help with my eye strain, but it doesn't completely eliminate it. To open it up, not only do you need to pull out the 4 screws, but you do need to peel the face foam away. Once that's done, it just slides right out. We can see the lens. It has maybe about 2 centimeters of distance. And this is a little unique in terms of design because the main board is attached to the top of the headset. Most of these box sets have the main board behind the display. After you remove the plate, there's only 1 screw and the fan connector holding this board down. The display slides out, and just need to be careful not to damage the ribbon cable. So it might seem like this is a diversity headset because of the 2 antenna connectors. But as we can see here, there is only 1 receiver module, so it's not true diversity. So let's have a look at the display. I just plugged the battery in here. And this is my Mobula 7, so the colors are not as vibrant as some other cameras, but you can get an idea of what the display looks like here. And finally, let's take a quick look at the fan. It's just a simple brushless 5-volt fan. Now let's see how it compares to the Fatshark Recon V2. This is a budget Fatshark, and it is a little nicer. It has a DVR, and it has a power switch, as well as an internal 18650 battery, unlike the EMAX headset, which has an external 18650 battery. So when we compare to the displays, the EMAX has a much brighter display, and I think the colors are a lot more saturated, and really depends on the camera. This is the Tinyhawk camera. But one thing I want to point out is that the enclosure is white all around, and that is a little distracting. Most headsets have a black enclosure, and that helps you focus better on the display. So it wasn't the best design decision to use white plastic for this. The Fatshark has a slightly different lens. It has a bit of a bend in the middle, and it doesn't have an adjuster. That being said, I find it a lot easier on my eyes. It actually doesn't strain my eyes like the EMAX, and I think that has to do with the fact that they used a mirror and the display is actually on top. The Fatshark is not as bright, and the colors are not as saturated, but it's a much higher quality headset in just about every regard. The plastic is nicer, the face foam is nicer, the head strap is nicer, it's a little bit smaller, but the EMAX just has a slightly better display. Now let's compare the batteries. I want to like this battery case, but as you can see, it just doesn't want to stay closed. The battery pops out all the time, and even if you just set it down, it'll shoot out like this. The Fatshark has a much better designed battery bay. It's internal and removable, so you can swap out fully charged 18650 batteries. And it's got a power switch on the bottom, and it has a USB port on the side, so you can use the headset to charge the internal battery, which is great. Definitely a well-designed headset. The EMAX battery case also has a USB charger, so it's basically an 18650 charger. The EMAX face foam is pretty nice, actually better than most, but not as nice as the Fatshark face foam. The Fatshark also has a slightly better plastic, has a bit of glossy finish, while the EMAX has more of a flat white matte finish to it. Now let's compare the EMAX to the Eachine VR-D3, which is another fairly recent headset. Again, let's look at the colors and the resolution. The Eachine has a slightly higher resolution display, but it's a smaller display. I believe it's only about 3 inches compared to the 4.3 inch display of the EMAX. The VR-D3 has a kind of an odd display. It's higher resolution, but the colors do some weird things. I found that the saturation can be off, and depending on the camera, it might have a bit of a strobing, flashing effect. And sometimes even the colors are completely desaturated, so it's not ideal. The VR-D3 does have a DVR though, and it has true diversity, unlike the EMAX, which is only antenna diversity. So here's a little bit of footage of the Tinyhawk. And here I'm flying with my X-Lite, which is my daily driver radio. But I also flew this with the RTF radio, the one that came with it. And I just wanted to show you how my flying changes depending on the radio. Now, I didn't give the EMAX radio a whole lot of stick time, so I'm not fully used to it. But after a couple of batteries, I was able to fly it somewhat competently, but definitely not as well as I can fly it on the X-Lite. I think if you're just starting out, it should be acceptable, and I do like that the sticks don't require any deadband, so that's a bonus. Most of the cheap radios that come with these quads don't center really well, and they might waver around the midpoint. The sticks feel pretty decent. They've got a little bit of tension on the springs, and they have a smooth motion to them, which is admirable for the cost. You cannot change the stick ends, which to me is a big problem because I'm not a thumber, and these are basically designed for thumbing. I had a hard time doing any kind of pinch with them, so I'm basically flying thumbing here, which is not something I'm used to. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, and thank you.